And one in particular, I saw this in the list and I thought, oh, this would be fun. So we're gonna check out Civilizations Too Stupid to Exist, San Angeles from Demolition Man. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, Falling Light, have a good night. Wait, what? Oh, fuck! Shadow Spurdo! Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I missed the biddies! Holy shit! Thank you so much for the 1,000 biddies! I totally missed that while I was looking for the videos! Thank you so much! Thank you! No, Micro Viper, that is the running joke, is that Demolition Man was the Nostradamus of movies when it comes to, the modern day shit. That is often said. So, let's see if San Angeles really is too stupid to exist, or if reality has decided to take this concept of it's too stupid to exist and bitch slapped it. Let's find out.
Mellow greetings, viewers. It's another episode of Advanced Sci-Fi Civilizations Too Stupid to Really Exist. And this one will hopefully bring about those joy feelings. It's San Angeles from Demolition Man. 1996 LA. Such a crime-ridden hellhole, it's surely on its way to becoming Mega City 1. But no, that punishment would be reserved for a few years later. For now, we'll just have to...
I'm gonna point out something real quick off the top of my head. Or not point out something, I want to ask something. I cannot recall if the writers specifically did this or not, but was the beginning of Demolition Man the way that Los Angeles basically turned into an absolute hellscape by 1996? Because I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, Demolition Man came out in like the early 90s, did it not? Like, didn't Demolition Man come out like 92? I want to say it was like 1992 that Demolition Man came out. And then they were saying, was it 90? Okay, it was 93. I can't remember, but did the writers say San Angeles was going to turn into a hellscape by 1996 because of the Rodney King riots? I seem to recall, I for some reason, I'm thinking that there was something in there, like in the behind the scenes, that they basically said they painted Los Angeles as a hellscape then because of the events of the King riots and what happened there. Am I correct? Does anybody know, or am I just speculating? Well, like, I realized there was a lot of crime in the late 80s and early 90s, Pink. I fully appreciate that. But I thought that the King riots influenced the writers in how they painted Los Angeles for the movie in 96. Hey, Jack, thank you. Nanachi? Why do you say that? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just wondering where the hell that came from. And Revin, thank you for the tier 3. Thank you so much. It was the drug war suit, Victor? Yeah, okay, that sounds about right. It was just, I thought, the riots specifically, somewhere in the back of my head, I thought I remembered something. Something about that. Oh, okay. Alright, well. Color me surprised. Anyway, let's continue.
Settle with being annoyed by Rob Schneider. And what is apparently not...
Okay, I'm pausing a lot, but poor Rob Schneider. What's so funny is people love to bash on Rob Schneider for years. And yet, right now, Rob Schneider is actually considered, like, a really base person. He's on, I can't remember if he has his own podcast or if he's been on other people's podcasts right now where he's called out the bullshit of Hollywood. And, he is actually, considered pretty fucking base these days with his takes regarding Hollywood. Revan, not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of Rob Schneider being involved with anything regarding Diddy, but I've not been keeping up with the Diddy thing, so I do not know.
I'm on a seafood. All I see is food.
Okay. Uh, anyway, Rob Schneider, he's doing stand up, but he's also doing podcasts, and he's like calling out the bullshit in Hollywood. So he's gone from being basically, a meme and a societal punching bag to being fucking based. I just thought that was really interesting.
Schneider. In what is apparently not an audition for Judge Dredd, Stallone plays John Spartan, another one-man army masquerading as a law enforcement officer who was wrongly convicted of manslaughter after an inept coroner screwed him over big time.
I'm sorry, what? I need to hear that again because I think that was bullshit. Hold on.
John Spartan, another one-man army masquerading as a law enforcement officer who was wrongly convicted of manslaughter after...
Wait, what did... Okay, I was focused on something else.
Another one-man army masquerading as a law enforcement officer who was wrongly convicted of manslaughter after an inept coroner screwed him over big time.
Victor, I'm not sure how much of that is canon because I'm not so sure an inept coroner screwed him over. Because the whole concept is, I don't know if he's going to get into it, but the whole concept was the beginning of the movie, Spartan is going after Simon Phoenix, played by Wesley Snipes, and they have Snipes has a whole bunch of hostages, and, Stallone and Snipes do get out, and the building ends up blowing up. And there were, the fire department found all the bodies of all the hostages. And so Spartan was basically took the hit for the death of the hostages.
He must have stashed them someplace else. So how do you know they weren't in there? Are you sure? Because I did a thermal check and there was only 8 of them, all part of his game.
But yes, later in the movie, Snipes reveals that the hostages were already dead. Now, given the fact that they were in a building that fucking exploded, like the bus was in this building that literally fucking exploded because Phoenix had rigged it to explode and got triggered by gas poured all over the ground. Since the entire building exploded, the coroner probably wouldn't have been able to determine time of death. So, inept coroner, and no, incorrect. In the time that Phoenix killed the hostages and when the building blew up, the coroner would not be able to pinpoint the time of death in such a short time frame. It would not be possible. The findings, what? What are you talking about? I don't ever remember that being in the movie, that the findings claim the hostages had bullets in them from Stallone's gun. I don't ever remember that. They Colossal, the whole thing with the deaths is after Stallone got Phoenix out, after the knockdown drag-out brawl and the building exploded, the only thing about the hostages' death is you have a firefighter that comes out and says, "We've got bodies, hundreds of them," and that's it. That's really the only thing that was said about the hostages at that point in the movie. And then the next thing is he's getting frozen. So I don't remember anything else regarding that other than when Simon Facelay tells Spartan, "Yeah, I already killed the hostages, were already dead before he even got there."
Frozen in a cryo prison with his villain BFF, they wake up 36 years later to discover that LA has gone full dystopia, though not in the way we've come to expect. Now a vast megalopolis stretching from San Diego to Santa Barbara, San Angeles is a brave new world. But this time the drug is political correctness.
Oh,
it's
they're
a
both
militantly
greatness,
liberal
Robin.
megacity one. To be honest,
it's a great
probably
action
not
movie.
that far off what California would end up like if they actually managed to secede. Minus the oppressive drug laws, of course. So Snipes and Sly, our macho 90s action heroes, proceed to give San Angeles the shot of testosterone it sorely needs, assaulting this bunch of boring namby-pambies quite literally, but also with an impressive barrage of suitably dated one-liners.
You're gonna regret this the rest of your life.
Both seconds of it.
Though that's only in between bouts of shilling for Taco Bell, or if you're from my neck of the woods, Pizza Hut. Fittingly, it's the most draconian brand deal of all time, apparently wiping out all their competitors during something called the Franchise Wars. Taco Bell, or Pizza Hut, now enjoys a government-backed restaurant monopoly. And if that wasn't comprehensive enough, they're even being portrayed as a fine dining experience.
Yep. And for those of you that actually saw the movie, during this scene, they actually, okay, this is a deep cut. But for those of you that have seen this movie and know the history, during the Taco Bell scene, when they first arrive at the Taco Bell, there is basically what could be considered a lounge singer that is basically singing the theme song of the Jolly Green Giant commercial. Heartbreak of the Valley, Valley of the Jolly Green Giant. And there's a guy that's playing piano singing that song. The guy that was playing that piano and singing that song, do you know who he was? This is a bit of a deep cut for those that don't know. The piano player singing the Jolly Green Giant song in the Taco Bell was a man by the name of Dan Cortez. And at the time this movie came out, Dan Cortez was the host of one of MTV's shows. Like back when MTV actually was a thing, and they actually have talk shows, but like when they had the variety type shows and whatnot. Dan Cortez was a host of one of these variety shows on MTV, and that's who the piano player singing Jolly Green Giant was. He was one of these MTV hosts. It could have been Sports Gray Matter. I'm not sure. I just know that he was a host on MTV at the time. And by the way, yes, Sandra Bullock was sexy as hell, but also absolutely fucking adorable. I don't know how she did it. Somehow, Sandra Bullock managed to be both adorable and sexy as all hell in this movie. It was impressive, which made it all the more heartbreaking that when Stallone was gonna have sex with her, he didn't even get to touch her. That made it all that more depressing. And yes, I know. The next person that tells me about Cocteau, and I swear to God, I may time you out. Yes, I know he got banned. I'm sure I will be hearing about it tomorrow. I don't care. This is my stream. We're talking about this. I don't give a fuck about Cocteau right now. Okay?
Look, obviously I'm not one for maintaining my suspension of disbelief very well, if at all, but even I can see this is taking shit way too far. Though perhaps I should withhold judgment, since Taco Bell has recently made it to my country, and I live in the Western world's equivalent of Timbuktu. Well, assuming they put us on the map at all.
Rehab colony back in New Zealand doesn't seem so bad right now.
If Taco Bell made it here, their world dominance could well be assured. So it's about time someone explained to me how the damn 3 seashells work. I just can't see any way this is going down without making a...
How many of you guys saw the Nostalgia Critic review of Wait, he did? Revan, when did Stallone explain it? This is the first time I've ever heard about someone actually explaining the 3 seashells. Okay, Revan, I'm begging you. I am begging you right now, Revan. If you can find that short, for the love of God, drop it in stream chat on the Discord. If you can find that, drop it in there. I will watch it immediately after this. Please try and find that for me. It is the first time I've heard any cast member knows a fucking thing about the 3 seashells. So please drop me the sauce in stream chat general and Discord. Please.
Horrific mess, and that's before I had a gutful of state-mandated tacos. I'll admit that using a wad of paper does seem a bit archaic, but have these guys ever heard of bidets? Though I suppose that would be far too risque for these wet flannels.
Not
really
wrong.
licked his ass.
Yep, prepare for this government to be all up in your business. In the totalitarian society of San Angeles, the disturbing lack of cuisine and toiletry options are probably the least of your concerns. Point 1. An intrusive, overbearing government invites rebellion. After a great earthquake, San Angeles was built from the ashes into its current form by this guy, Dr. Raymond Cocteau, a villain so profoundly stupid he could have definitely had his own episode of Villains Too Stupid to Win. So at the very least, he'll be getting his own section. It's not entirely clear what kind of central government this Cocteau is ruling over, but it sure seems like a paternalistic dictatorship, and he's
I had to stop because for a second I went, how old is this person? For a moment, I thought this might have been a child. I legitimately thought this might have been a child for a second, but then I took a second look. I'm like, okay, no, they just have youthful features. And yeah, you're right. Zoom meeting. This is a Zoom meeting. Like between this movie and Idiocracy are both pretty fucking scary in how much they predicted shit that would happen in the future. And as far as did this movie predict Zoom meetings? No. No, it did. If we're gonna say anybody predicted Zoom meetings, that would be Star Trek. Star Trek predicted Zoom meetings long before Demolition Man was even a glimmer in a writer's eye. Let's be real about that. But in terms of the societal attitudes, yeah, this movie did predict a lot, right along with Idiocracy. It did forecast how severe political correctness is taking hold of modern society. I think in terms of between the two movies, between Demolition Man and Idiocracy, Demolition Man was basically, I think, doing a call out to the extreme political correctness. Because around 1993, that's when political correctness was a big thing. That's when Bill Maher had his show Politically Incorrect, is because political correctness was such a huge thing, and this movie was basically calling it out. Demolition Man was calling out the extreme political correctness where it was policing language, it was policing how you interacted with people. That's what this movie was doing. Idiocracy was doing a call out of basically how stupid people were getting and how people were fostering that degree of stupidity, and through generational, downgrades, it became Idiocracy. So 2 different predictions, both unfortunately that are becoming too fucking true.
He's been in power for a long time now, so if it's a democracy, it must be Russian. Funny, I would have thought a humane society would be against such an abusive power.
In a city which purports to have eliminated virtually all crime.
Cocteau rules over a nanny state turned ninny state. Fixated on reducing harm by micromanaging the population, they seek to tightly control all aspects of human behavior, which results in personal freedoms, choices, and even language being severely curtailed. They've basically cancelled everything fun and made taking risks illegal.
It is rare to encounter someone as dispassionate as we are.
Yeah, like RoboCop, Demolition Man is ripe with themes that are more relevant than ever. So it would probably
referencing back to 1984, that was just basically talking about authoritarianism. Demolition Man and Idiocracy were kind of looking at more of the societal shifts versus going to the level of, going to the level of authoritarianism. Is basically I'll focus on Demolition Man instead of jumping back and forth between the two movies. With Demolition Man, it was how political correctness was so far on the rise back in 93, and it was basically, forecasting what if we allowed political correctness to continue on this path of trying to control everybody's thoughts, control everybody's feelings, police what they say, police what they can do, so as not to offend anybody, and it creates a boring, sterile, non-thinking society where they're grossly entertained by commercial jingles from 50 years ago. And that's kind of what they were doing here. It's not so much authoritarianism, it's just, for this movie, it was political correctness that just basically was let off the chain and allowed to run completely amok. And Cocteau basically was, when the earthquake happened, Cocteau basically was somehow, I'm not sure about the history of it, if there actually was an established history, he was able to basically say that because humanity was on this downward turn, and then with the, utilize the earthquake to basically foster a, like, okay, we're going to rebuild society, but we're going to do it right. And he was able to get enough supporters and perhaps enough people in positions of authority that can implement his ideologies of extreme political correctness, that they were able to reform San Angeles into his version of a utopia. And it's not so much authoritarianism in the traditional sense, like the 1984. It was basically just, it was a lot of mindfuckery to get people to go, yes, we should live peacefully. And the way to do it peacefully is to police our own language and to police ourselves. And, it's the difference between 1984 and Demolition Man is in Demolition Man, you just got fine credits and you were essentially like publicly shamed. And that was with simple words. And that was enough. Whereas in 1984, much more violent methods were utilized instead of just naughty, and that was enough to shame someone. So, yeah, that's the big difference here.
Be quicker for me to tell you what isn't illegal in San Angeles. Walking, breathing, existing. Because the list of banned activities is really quite extensive.
Smoking is not good for you. It has been deemed that anything not good for you is bad. Hence, illegal. Alcohol, caffeine, contact sports, meat, bad language, chocolate, gasoline, uneducational toys, and anything spicy. Abortion is also illegal, but then again, so is pregnancy if you don't have a license. Salt.
Yeah, so there you go. There it is. Oh, present. Not only that, my fucking coffee. You take my coffee away. You take away my coffee, I'm throwing hands. Okay, I don't give a fuck how small I am. I'm throwing fucking hands if you try to take my coffee away. Especially in the mornings.
Salt is not good for you, hence it is illegal.
Salt, a substance which is essential to the human body. And considering everyone has also been forced into vegetarianism, which is a diet low in sodium. Without added or table salt, monitoring your sodium levels must be a constant struggle. And it was bad enough only having a swanky vegetarian version of Taco Bell. Now they won't even let us season this shit.
I swear to God, it's like food from a kindergarten.
Not an ounce of seasoning.
But perhaps
Yes, in to see Gordon Ramsay, he was too young at this point, but what I would have given to have Gordon Ramsay be one of the rebels and show up at Taco Bell and just go to fucking town on Demolition Man Taco Bell. Oh, that would have been fucking glorious. I would have fucking loved to see it. By the way, another little bit of a deep cut. Anyone know who this is? Does anybody know who this is from Demolition Man? Very brief part. She was only in it for literally like 2 minutes. But does anybody know who this is? Huh? Anybody? Nope, not Fairuza Balk. Nope. No, not Fairuza Balk. I forget, the actress's name escapes me. She was Jessie from Saved by the Bell. We also went on to do that god-awful movie Showgirls. For the life of me, I forget the actress's name, but that's who this is. This is Jessie from Saved by the Bell. She's in the movie for a total of 2 minutes. No, not Elizabeth Berkley. No, it's not Elizabeth Berkley. Wait, no, you're right. It is Elizabeth Berkley. God. For some reason, I started thinking Elizabeth Berkley was Elizabeth Hurley. Don't ask me why my brain went there. Yes, no, you're correct. It is Elizabeth Berkley. Yes. This is Elizabeth Berkley of Saved by the Bell and Showgirls fame. She had 2 minutes in here in this movie where she basically tries to insult Stallone by saying that he's a fossil from a dead or a dying era doomed to live in obscurity. What would you say to that? And Stallone just goes, "Nope, thanks." It's funny as hell. But yeah, that's who this is. She's in it for a total 2 minutes. Just wanted to drop that little bit of trivia.
Most damning of all, these dastardly prudes have even banned sex. And this is just the stuff we're made aware of. Compliance with this intrusive behavioral code is monitored via an extensive Orwellian surveillance network of cameras and listening devices. There's seemingly very few places you can go in the city without being blasted for your potty mouth by these
UK strays. Is this sounding a little familiar to you right now? Extensive CCTV footage, monitoring of your communications, coming after you for bad language. Starting to sound a little bit familiar, UK strays? And Revan, no, the line is, this is the future. Where are the phaser guns? Not laser, phaser guns. And yes, this movie is where the line that we saw in HLC's video the other day of, "Why don't you shove a leash up my ass?" came from. Well, South Korea may have the same with CCTV, but they are not the same in terms of basically arresting people for saying mean things on the internet. The UK is.
automated swear jars. Twice, and the cops are called.
I'd rather flee the f***ing country.
Graffiti will likely get you, and all cars notified. San Angeles population are encoded from birth, recording all of their transactions and allowing the authorities to track everyone in real time. They've even gone so far as to reprogram the minds of criminals. This
Actually, Conker, you bring up an excellent point. This is supposedly a highly digitized age. San Andreas is apparently highly digital. Like, every fucking thing is digital. Why then, if they have the microchips in their hands that is responsible for them gaining access to their apartments and is responsible for any financial transactions via the chip in their hand, what? Micro, did you just look that up on IMDb? I thought for sure it was Elizabeth Berkley. Are you sure? Did you IMDb that? I thought for sure. Okay. Then maybe I'm wrong. I thought for sure that was Elizabeth Berkley. If I'm wrong, I am incorrect. Yeah, I've been under the misconception. I've been wrong about this for years. Shit, my whole world is collapsing on me, chat. Anyway, what I was saying is, point of note of problem with the fining thing, their finances are done via the chip in their hand that is implanted, according to the video, since birth, which I will buy. Why then, and everything is digital, they're living in a 100% digital age. Why then, when they receive a fine, are they printed out a piece of paper? When everything is digital and the money is literally going to automatically be deducted from the microchip implanted in their hand. Eh? What? Huh? Why?
real time. They've even gone so far as to reprogram the minds of criminals. This oppressive regime has had a notable effect on the population, transforming them into a bunch of submissive, homogenized...
I realize it's their receipt. I realize that. But they are an all-digital society. Why not just basically send that to their computer at their home? Like, okay, when they get home, their TV or their computer or whatever says, lists their fine. You can have like the speaker saying, beep, you have been fined 1 credit. That's fine. But why print out the paper? But J10, it wasn't only for that scene. It also happened with Wesley Snipes when he was at that public phone booth terminal thing. It was also printing it out for him. Well, public shaming, it doesn't work because you could easily just like shove the paper in your pocket and no one's going to see it. If you're looking to publicly shame, you could have basically instead had their microchip sort of blink in a certain way that everyone would know, oh, that person violated the language statute. I know, Fishy. I realize it was because movie. I realize that. I'm pointing out a plot hole because it's fun to do. That's all. I fully appreciate it's because movie, because we need it for the movie. I appreciate that.
Effect on the population, transforming them into a bunch of submissive, homogenized incels, crushed into a fine vanilla paste under the weight of an iron fist wearing a velvet glove, dressing almost uniformly with stylistic influences from Japanese culture, Wacky Gaddafi, and Dr. Moreau. That's
And one thing I'll point out, this is not a criticism, it's just an addition. Not only with the stylistic choices that he was just mentioning, leave us also not forget a distinct lack of color. With all of the clothing and the style and the fashion and the vehicles and everything, there is a very distinctive lack of color throughout San Angeles. Everything is dull or neutral tones or dark colors. It's colorless, it's stale, it's very emotionless. It's nothing to evoke emotions. And that's, I think, and I fully believe that indeed was deliberate to basically show a sterilized dystopian type future where humanity has basically lost its spurt, that people are just going through life, but they believe that they're just going through the motions in a emotionless, neutral, not happy life, but they've kind of been, shall we say, brainwashed into thinking that this is the best kind of life to live. Whereas I've also wondered the same thing. Like, you never hear about anything outside of San Angeles, so it begs the question is, like, did this homie happen in San Angeles? Or did this kind of dystopia spread to other cities throughout the country or even the world? I don't know. And we never, nothing ever indicates it. So, but yeah, I just want to point that out. I don't know if when he was mentioning the fashion, that's another thing I observed when I watched the movie, just how plain everything was in the movie by design. I fully appreciate that this was all done by design.
Influences from Japanese culture, Wacky Gaddafi, and Dr. Moreau. That's not exactly great. Though to be honest, their aversion to social touching doesn't seem quite so silly anymore. So it's not like everything in San Angeles is all that bad. The government has definitely achieved their goal of reducing harm to its lowest possible level, with violent crime, at least on the surface, ceasing to exist. They haven't had a murder in 16 years. But aside from that, their societal tinkering is kind of pointless and problematic, doing almost nothing in terms of the state maintaining order and coming at the expense of citizen morale. I'm sure we can understand the reasoning behind some of their harm minimization laws, but come on, no sex?
No kiss kiss, no bang bang.
It's a natural biological function.
Yeah, because you notice all of the color, all of the proponents of color in this movie is in two locations: Huxley's office and Huxley's apartment. Those are the two locations in this movie where there is a propensity of color. Because Huxley's office got a shit ton of like old movie posters and tchotchkes and knickknacks, all very bright and colorful, and the same with her apartment. She's got a whole bunch of like basically, quote unquote classic stuff. Yes, exactly. Yeah. She is a fan. She is obsessed with the 90s. She is absolutely obsessed with the 90s and loves all of it. But those are the only two places in the entire movie where you saw a great degree of color.
Sexually repressing the entire population will definitely cause a range of
Was it
psychological problems.
And
It's
yes, I
just
know
a
it was contraband.
recipe for disaster. Look, I'm not entirely against this VR sex thing either, but can't it be a supplement to sex rather than a replacement? Why don't we have both? They're discouraging the very act that will help their society maintain a viable population. I'd give them 40 years before San Angeles is just a few geriatric virgins shuffling around empty streets getting the early bird special at a now automated Taco Bell. So with nothing left to do but eat, work and sleep, it's not surprising that some people find it hard to be well in a situation that is morbidly depressing.
I don't know. Lately, I just don't feel like there's anything special about me.
You'd be tempted to kick off a
Yeah, that scene. They didn't really show it. Is the guy standing in that like public phone booth thing and was talking to an AI for therapy. Which, chat, it's happening now. Instead of actually going to see a therapist, there are lots of people using chatbots as their, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, all of the AIs. People are legitimately using them as therapy tools, which is fucking scary because leave us not forget, there was that one situation of that young man who was in love with his AI girlfriend, and his AI girlfriend told him to kill himself, and he did. So it's pretty fucking scary that, that we in current modern day, people are legitimately using AI chatbots as therapists. That is terrifying.
revolution out of sheer boredom alone.
The risk of injury seems preferable to the certainty of dying from a chemical imbalance.
It is suggested there's a hidden subversive element.
Hold up. Chat, just for you. There you go, chat. I know you'd get upset if I didn't get out of the way of it. I know you'd get upset if I didn't move out of the way of this particular scene. What's so funny is considering how sterile of a society this is, that phone call with the woman completely naked on the video phone was the fact that she did that in the first place was honestly more shocking than her nudity. Like, given how sterile and sexless the entire society is, why would she do that? It doesn't fit with how society works in Demolition Man. And no, I'm not gonna get banned. YouTube's not gonna ban because I'm literally watching this on YouTube. And no, Twitch is not gonna ban me. Everything is fully covered up. We're fine.
In their society, at least when it comes to sex. Which brings a disturbing new possibility, with an admission of having sex getting you a visit from the fun police and perhaps a stint in cryo prison. I guarantee you this society is absolutely rife with untreated STDs. But San Angeles is plagued with problems.
Well, okay, Microviper counterpoint. If that society is sexless and people are going to think about nudity in sexual terms, then why, when she called, was her voice sensual? And that's where I'm going to, Rygat. When she called, she was like, I've been thinking, acting all sexy. And as soon as she saw it was John, not the person she was intending to call, and go, oh, so sorry, wrong number, and immediately covers up. If it really was a quote-unquote sexless society and she doesn't think about nudity in sexual terms, she wouldn't have immediately grabbed something to cover up and go, oh, I'm so sorry, wrong number. So yeah, it doesn't work. It's basically, it's a point in the movie that stands out as doesn't quite fit. Well, not necessarily, Revan. Don't forget, Demolition Man is something like 50 years in the future. And she looked like she was in her 20s. So, knowing about old culture and behaving like you are still a part of that old culture are two very different things. Just say.
Absolutely rife with untreated STDs. But San Angeles is plagued with problems that are somewhat more obvious. For a regime fixated on promoting wellness and uniformity, you'd think the society would be profoundly egalitarian, but you'd be wrong. San Angeles has a notable classist undercurrent, with an upper class of pretentious snobs and wannabe aristocrats and an expansive middle class, all supporting the state order. But below this shiny sanitized world lies a far more filthy one. Deviants who refuse to sign up to Cocteau's agenda are forced to live a life in exile as Mad Max sewer rats, choosing a hard existence for the sake of having personal freedoms.
Oh, that 4-4. Oh my god. That Charger. Pretty sure it was a Charger. Oh, that car. Oh. The Dodge Charger with, I think they said I would have 440 Hemi Cuda. Or wait, was it a? Oh, maybe it was a Cuda. I'm trying to remember if they said it was a Charger or if it was a Hemi Cuda. And I think it may have been the Hemi Cuda. That may be what it was. No, it was not a Corvette, and it was a Camaro. That was I'm pretty sure it was. Yes, Minstrel. Minstrel, I know my chat has been bugging the crap out of me about it. I know. I don't care right now. I truthfully don't care. I'm sure I'll hear about it tomorrow, but I don't care right now. Thank you. Yeah, Anubis, I'm thinking the same thing. It looks, granted, Nash had a convertible, but it's okay. Don't worry, Minstrel. It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, Anubis, you're right. It does look like Nash's Cuda, although Nash had a convertible and his was a canary yellow. But Dwayne, you're right. You saying that just now sparked a memory. Yeah, it was a 72 Olds 442. You are absolutely correct, Dwayne. Thank you. And yeah, it was a 1972 Oldsmobile 442. Yep. You saying that sparked the line in my head. You are absolutely right. Thank you. Still a beautiful fucking car.
Freedoms. The supposedly humane welfare state only interested in looking after their supporters, failing to supply these non-conformists with even basics such as food. Led by Dennis Leary playing himself, who despite being given the perfect vehicle for his anti-societal tirades ended up hating the movie. Now that's what I call staying in character.
Lee. I didn't know that Dennis Leary hated the movie. Because I mean, he even got to go on to do one. Like, don't forget, this is the time when Dennis Leary was still doing his stand-up, I believe. This was kind of at the height of his stand-up, and one thing that Dennis Leary loved to do was his rants. He loved to basically just go on these tirade rants where he would just go just rapid fire for 1 to 2 minutes. And honestly, and he got to do that in this movie. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun when he did it. Oh yeah, I know his asshole song too. I've listened to a couple of his stand-ups, and this was at about the height of his stand-up career, so he got to do that. It's a lot. It was a lot of fun watching him do a rant.
Character.
What seems to be your boggle?
Though it's not quite as impressive as Jack Black playing another filthy crust punk.
Oh my god, he's right. I didn't even know this. That's fucking Jack Black. Holy shit. He does, Halcyon. Wow, I didn't even recognize him. Holy crap. Ah!
Punk.
That's a nice touch.
Apparently Sly wasn't the only one auditioning for a different movie. These desperate people represent a rather large existential threat to San Angeles. It's a rebellion movement that could kick off at any time, and although these scraps might struggle to contend with the likes of John Spartan, compared to the rest of the populace, these punks actually know how to fight, and they're heavily armed. The
No,
irony
kinda.
of the state's oppressive regime of control.
They kinda know how to fight. They have weapons, but I mean, when they went up against when they went up against Stallone, and yeah, Stallone is a badass, but it's not like he was like special forces or anything. He was just a cop. They lasted all of 2 seconds when they went up against Stallone, and when Stallone grabbed one of them, he actually was begging for his life when they did the raid on Taco Bell. So yeah, they had weapons. Yeah, they could fight. They could fight more than the citizens of San Angeles, but realistically, their ability to fight was excessively limited.
It's likely the very thing that will lead to its downfall. But how exactly was
Well,
this
yeah,
movement
Revan, I know.
allowed to develop uncontested for so long? Well, the government does deserve some props for their lack of authoritarian enforcement, but concerningly, they're not really capable of enforcing their laws at all. Point 2.
Yep.
San Angeles is extremely vulnerable to collapse. Its citizens suffer from low resilience, and state enforcers are unprepared for even minor threats.
Which begs the question, because we know how inept San Angeles Police Department was. They can't cope with any threat. The San Angeles Police Department wholly relies upon everyone basically self-policing, which they were doing. If there was any sort of an external threat, they would not be able to handle it at all. Which begs the question, or actually kind of points to the fact that what occurred in San Angeles may have actually spread beyond the borders of San Angeles and may have become a countrywide thing. Because let's face it, if it was San Angeles alone, they will get visitors from outside the city. And if people from outside the city did not follow the same social, were not a part of the same social zeitgeist that San Angeles was, any visitors coming into San Angeles would wreak fucking havoc on San Angeles. And the police would not have been able to do a thing about it. So that gives credence to the idea that what happens in San Angeles is not limited to San Angeles. It actually spread beyond the borders and may very well have, gone through the entirety of the United States, perhaps. Because let's face it, okay, this is San Angeles, all right? What happens when someone from San Fran shows up? Imagine that, that word spreads that San Angeles is so peaceful, but the cops are fucking pussies. You don't think people from all over the neighboring towns would be coming in just to fuck with the people of San Angeles? This is California. Yes, people would be coming from all over just to fuck with San Angeles because it's funny. Even back in the early 90s, this was true. So that makes me think that it spread beyond the borders of San Angeles. Well, Revan, strict entry wall, again, they have no means of properly policing or guarding said strict entry wall. You don't think people wouldn't climb over it? That's kind of been happening on the border for decades. You don't think people would climb over the walls of any strict entry wall into San Angeles? It wouldn't make sense if this was strictly San Angeles and didn't spread beyond. That's my view on it. Literally everything that you guys are, Revan, every single thing that you're saying about this, strict entry wall, good taser walls, all of it could be circumvented and would be circumvented if it happened. Especially given the fact that this is an extremely passive society and everything outside the borders of it would not be a passive society. And there would be thousands of people that would figure out very easily how to disable any countermeasures they might have in place just because it's funny. So that's what I'm saying.
Yep, San Angeles has failed in the absolute basics of statecraft. Their pacifist sensibilities leaving the state's enforcers unable to maintain a monopoly on violence. With a vast surveillance network at their disposal, yet unable to actually enforce their draconian laws. The San Angeles Police Department are like a far less intimidating version of the Thought Police. Unsure of how to pacify one man, they rely on a computer to guide them. The trouble is, it doesn't tell them how to actually apprehend anyone, at least not in time to stop them being pummeled. It's obvious the San Angeles Police Department has become overly reliant on their technology and the public's apparent willingness to submit to authority, but that's no excuse for their inadequate preparation. Modern soldiers and police are often training for
Well, Revan, to your point, it's a small group. You know, the rebels were a small group, comprised of probably an eighth or less, probably much less than an eighth of the populace of San Angeles, and they're also afraid. They're starving, and they're afraid, and so I think they feared if they tried to take over that they could be just overcome by sheer numbers. That is my suspicion. That's why they limit themselves to quick strikes and just to get food. Like they were doing those quick strikes just to get food, and they weren't actually like fighting anybody to do it. They were reliant upon confusion and panic, and there was probably a legitimate fear. Like the minute people overcome that panic, if they were to try to take over, they could get absolutely swarmed. Even being as inept they are, because in times of extreme crisis, human nature takes over, and human nature is grab a stick and kill something. That's human nature. You cannot override human nature. And in cases of extreme fear, that will always prevail. So that's why the rebels were a tiny little group compared to the populace of San Angeles. So if the tiny little group tried to do a takeover, you know, the Unga Bunga would take over the people of San Angeles, and they probably knew it.
inadequate preparation. Modern soldiers and police are often training for situations that are entirely hypothetical. I'm left wondering what exactly these people do all day. Even without the threat of Phoenix or the
I'd say
scraps,
so, Fishy.
at some
At a
point
guess.
they're surely
At a
going
guess.
to need to apprehend someone who is not of sound mind. They seem to be well aware that mentally ill people exist.
Maniac has responded with a scornful remark.
And it doesn't help that their equipment isn't up to task either. You'd think these guys would be rocking an impressive repertoire of non-lethal options. Trank guns, taser guns, net guns, trank taser net guns. But no, all they have is these woefully inadequate glow sticks which require close contact with the perp. Obviously for these guys, dealing with an armed defender is just not possible. Yet the few guns they have around aren't deactivated or even secured properly. They're just sitting behind highly smashable glass and come replete with fully functional.
Okay. I'm gonna, the highly smashable part I will disagree with. Because when Simon Phoenix was trying to get those guns, don't forget, when he was in his cryo prison, they loaded him up with fucking steroids, so he was built like a brick shithouse and incredibly strong. And when he first tried to get to it, he was punching the fuck out of it and ticking the shit out of it and could not break the glass. It wasn't until that museum worker came up, grabbed him, and yeeted him into the glass that he was able to do it. So, highly breakable, no. It's just because Simon Phoenix was programmed with a fuck ton of weapons and tactics knowledge, as well as structural engineering knowledge, which probably allowed him to find the flaw in it. That's what allowed him to break the glass. And after he broke the glass, then he was able to use the weapons to just basically blast away other glass. So not highly shoutable, honestly.
properly. They're just sitting behind highly smashable glass and come replete with fully functional antique ammunition. So just
Now
one
that is a
violent
problem.
criminal completely overwhelms the SAPD, leaving Chief Himmler here little choice but to thaw out John Spartan to get the job done. And despite having reservations about the safety of such an endeavor.
I'm not sure he's...
Wait. Okay, a little disingenuous. They fought out John Spartan before he started raiding the museum. They fought out John Spartan after Simon Phoenix killed the cops at the phone booth. That's when they thawed him out. It was right after they thawed him out and got him in uniform and everything that he went to the museum to get the gun. So, timeline, not correct in this. I know, Fishy.
He's any different than Simon Phoenix himself.
He's talking smack to Spartan the moment he wakes up.
Caveman, let's finish with all the Rip Van Winkle and get moving.
But a lot of these pretentious jerks seem to resort to crass name-calling when challenged.
What would you say if I called you a brutish fossil, symbolic of a decayed era, gratefully forgotten?
You're a first-class cunt.
I guess their verbal
Okay, I want to hear that again. Oh, that edit is fucking perfect. That is a glorious fucking edit right there.
Decayed era, gratefully forgotten.
You're a first-class cunt.
I guess they
And that is the, yes, Pink, that was the proper response that bitch deserved. But tell me that the attitude where it's all about the name calling, tell me that ain't modern Twitter. That's literally fucking modern Twitter these days. Reduced to name calling everything.
their verbal code doesn't extend to being polite. And don't get me started on the hypocrisy of their horrendous music tastes.
Oh, wow, this is my fave.
What, so unhealthy food advertisements are allowed now? Fat kids? Sissy kids? I'm almost offended. There are no tough or fat kids left, thanks to you absolute monsters. Chief Arsehole now stands in Spartan's way at every opportunity, eventually threatening to throw him back in the freezer. But we all know they couldn't do that, even if they wanted to. It's not long until their lack of basic investigative skills are also laid bare.
We can just wait for another code to go red. And when Phoenix performs another murder-death-kill, we'll know exactly where to pounce.
If it weren't for Spartan and Huxley, they wouldn't have been able to track Simon at all.
He's on Sunset Boulevard looking for a fucking bus.
So with a complacent, submissive public and an inadequate police force, it's safe to say San Angeles is vulnerable to societal collapse with any unexpected event. It's not clear what's happening in the rest of the United States or the larger world, but I'm surprised this place hasn't been steamrolled already, though its demise may come sooner rather than later.
And his point right there about he's surprised that the demise didn't come sooner. Okay, Canito, jump off. It's okay. Have a great night. Wait. When he's talking about here, is he surprised that the demise didn't come sooner? Is what makes me think that this society spread beyond the borders of San Angeles and may have encompassed all of the United States. Is that very rationale there?
Considering their entire civilization is heavily reliant on their bumbling dictator. Point 3. Cocteau dooms the way of life he created, proving himself to be one of the most overconfident, short-sighted villains of all time. The architect and head micromanager of San Angeles, and the apparent owner of a state-controlled monopoly. So in other words, everything is indisputably this guy's fault. Living up to his dickish name, Cocteau is a pompous control freak, projecting his raging OCD onto an entire civilization.
Indeed. I have found that most humans are less than meticulous when it comes to their domestic habits.
Posing as a pope-like father figure, in reality he's more a pope-like big brother. He already knows the scraps.
Yeah, because, hang on. Look at the imagery on the monitors here. Seems very religious figure-y, doesn't it? The white robes, the standing amongst the clouds, the the holy scripture above his head of be well. Yeah, he was basically painting himself as a Christ-like figure. Yeah, he was. But honestly, I think it's actually much more simplistic than that. He's giving, oh, by the way, Lazy Snoopy, sorry, I missed your follow. Thank you very much for the follow, Lazy Snoopy. I think it's actually much more simplistic. Realistically, I think he basically cucked an entire city so he could live on high in luxury. Based on his behavior in the movie, I think that's what his goal was. He just wanted to live a luxurious lifestyle, and by cucking an entire society and basically being smarter than them, because he basically cucked the fuck out of everyone, and he was smarter, he was able to live on high in the lap of luxury and just dictate whatever he wanted. So I honestly think that might have been his fucking goal, is to just live a life of luxury where everyone caters to him and everybody is polite because they have been bred to be that way. Everybody has to be super polite to him. It's kind of sort of like a power fantasy, a fluffy pillow version of it.
He's more a Pope-like big brother. He already knows the scraps pose an existential
Rabbit,
threat to their society.
Your job is to kill Mr. Edgar Friendly and stop a revolution before it precipitates.
And he knows the police force aren't up to task. But rather than providing welfare for the scraps or fixing the actual problems with his enforcers, both of which would require an admission that San Angeles is less than perfect, he instead decides to assassinate scrap leader Ed.
Let's see. Yeah, these were his crimes, and he is the most wanted. Civil unrest activity, graffiti libel, incitement to riot, slander, food thievery, disorderly conduct, moral disquietude. And that made him public enemy number 1, to show you just how weak the society is. It's literally become a Twitter, it not even a Twitter society, this has basically kind of become a blue sky society.
Edgar Friendly, believing this will stop the threat of rebellion for good, and supposedly paving the way for a more perfect version of his false utopia.
I'll have carte blanche to create the perfect society. San Angeles will be a beacon of order, with the purity of an ant colony.
Is Cocteau Borg?
I would have to say yes.
Yeah, on top of all of his other neuroses, this supposed pacifist is also a hypocrite of the highest order. And I'm 100% certain Monster Cocteau is having regular fluid transfers with his geisha girl here.
Let's go blow this.
Yeah, fully agree. Oh, without question, they fuck it. No question whatsoever. It's okay, Lazy. It's fine. Yeah, it's like, it's very established that he's a hypocrite because he actually facilitated Simon Phoenix to chill. So I think this is not shocking that, he did it. But again, that's why I said he just wants to live in the lap of luxury. He's smarter than everybody else, or at least he was smarter than everybody else. And he managed to basically, con his way into creating this pussy society.
How about new?
The way he was positioned to yell that right at Cocteau, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. The way Dr. Evil yelled that right at Cocteau, chef's kiss. No, we're not talking about furry anti-meme. No, it's like, yeah, this is why I said that he's just someone that wanted to live in the lap of luxury, but and obviously didn't follow his own rules. He could say whatever he wants because he's the big cheese, he's the big boss. And yes, Tornado, I know. I was hearing it. He's the big cheese throughout all this. He's talking about killing people freely. you know he's fucking that hot geisha assistant of his. Yeah, this is all just he's doing all this and conning people and brainwashing people into being these pacifist little pussies, so he can live in a lap of luxury and do whatever he wants, because no one would dare call him out on anything because he is the great Cocteau. And he was all honestly, his methodology is very simple. He wants to be a rich asshole living in the lap of luxury and have everybody waiting on him hand and foot while he can do whatever he wants. It is honestly a base, simple, rich man story. Like he is just a typical rich billionaire today.
Is also a hypocrite of the highest order, and I'm 100% certain Monster Cocteau is having regular fluid transfers with his geisha girl here.
Let's go blow this guy.
Did I mention he appears to have sadistic tendencies?
People are terrified of you.
What's new? People have always been terrified of me.
Yes, but this time they're really intimidated.
His oppression of society, perhaps intentional, serving as the ultimate source material for his disturbing wank bank. Is this what he calls being well?
Well, I must say that whacking, whatever it is, sounds most disagreeable.
Despite the sicko poring over the minutiae of his society, his big plan for dealing with the scraps is riddled with oversights, putting his life at extreme risk and possibly handing San Angeles to the forces of utter chaos. For a start, killing Edgar will obviously not get rid of the threat of rebellion, since the scraps and the underlying issues that cause their movement would still exist.
People are hungry. We got nothing left to lose.
Well, okay. I think Cocteau, I don't think, number one, killing Edgar Friendly, Cocteau didn't think that killing Edgar Friendly would get rid of the rebels. What I think his plan was for killing Edgar Friendly was to demoralize the rebels so much that by losing their leader, that they might say, okay, fuck it, we can't live this way anymore. Let's go back to the surface and, we'll give up and reintegrate ourselves into society and live that life. I think that's what his intention was, is to basically eliminate the leader. You basically cut the head off of the snake, and then the rebellion would collapse and they would just give themselves to the quote unquote utopian society. That I think is what his plan was. His plan was just to have Wesley Snipes just kill all of them. Like, not only kill Edgar Friendly, but once Edgar Friendly was dead, he was probably going to have Wesley Snipes hunt them all down. That also is a sort of possibility. One way or the other, the rebels would be dead. Because like I said, it's not like there was a lot of them. I think when all the rebels came up from the sewers towards the end of the movie, I want to say there was like maybe 30 of them. It's not like there was a lot of them. It would have been, and he was probably planning to use Snipes to eliminate all of them, because Snipes could do so extremely easily.
At best, it's a half measure that might buy Cocteau a little time. At worst, it will probably cause the very uprising he so fears, because Edgar Friendly is currently keeping the scraps on a leash and making sure their bellies are full.
They do not appear to be posing a threat to us at this time.
He seemingly has no interest in sparking a revolution.
I'm no leader. I do what I have to do. Sometimes people come with me.
For all we know, Friendly will become a martyr upon his death, potentially inspiring the desperate scraps to unleash themselves on San Angeles. But as bad as the basic premise of Cocteau's plan is, the specifics are far, far worse. Cocteau covertly reprograms Simon Phoenix, turning this master criminal into a supervillain, loading this unpredictable, vicious killer with absolutely everything he needs to escape from prison, kill Edgar Friendly, and overthrow Cocteau's government. And he seemingly doesn't have a plan to get rid of Simon once the dirty deed is done. But don't worry, Cocteau in his eternal wisdom has made...
Okay, it's never explicitly said, but my suspicion is because he used hypnosis therapy on Simon Phoenix to kill Edgar Friendly, which also prevented him from killing Cocteau. My suspicion is that once Simon killed Edgar Friendly, he would have had a post-hypnotic suggestion that would trigger, that would cause Simon to kill himself. It's never explicitly said in the movie, but I suspect that was the Cocteau's plan. There was no brain chip. Simon Phoenix specifically did not have a chip, but he had post-hypnotic suggestion implanted in his mind during the cryostasis along with all of his skills. And part of that post-hypnotic suggestion was kill Edgar Friendly. We saw that. Another part was he could not harm Cocteau. Because we saw when he tried to pull the trigger on Cocteau multiple times, like this scene here, he can't do it because of post-hypnotic suggestion. So, very likely, the moment Simon Phoenix ended Edgar Friendly, a post-hypnotic suggestion would trigger and he would kill himself. That is my suspicion. I don't think that they didn't explicitly say it, but that makes the most logical sense.
Phoenix physically incapable of killing him while still allowing him
the
intention.
Mantis, I know, that's why I said so earlier.
Failsafe, I'm sure. Personally, I'd just lock him in a...
Well, Revan, it doesn't indicate that Phoenix figured it out. There's nothing to indicate that Phoenix figured that out. Yes, he is smart, but there's nothing to suggest that. Because, yeah, he figured out he can't kill Cocteau. And so when he tossed the gun to Jesse Ventura to kill Cocteau, which begs the question, why in the fuck, when they unthawed all those people for Simon, they didn't also implant that post-hypnotic suggestion? You can chalk that up to either plot hole or stupidity. Yeah, that's another plot hole. But at the same time, there's nothing to indicate that he figured out how to bypass the thing of killing Cocteau. But there's nothing to indicate he figured out how to bypass what I suspect is the suggestion to end himself once his mission was accomplished. That's what I'd say.
Intention. A foolproof failsafe, I'm sure. Personally, I'd just lock him in a room somewhere and leave him to die of thirst. So after Simon heads out and starts raising hell, Cocteau makes the mistake of telling Chief Arsehole to do everything in his power to stop Simon, which directly leads to John Spartan's release. Apparently hands off when it comes to his cryo prison, yet failing to keep his distance when it comes to his sordid little conspiracy. Rushing to the museum all hot and boggled by the disruption caused by Simon.
Our noble facility has been desecrated by hooligans.
Shouldn't you have been expecting something like this?
What's the matter with that jerk?
He then outs himself to Phoenix as the puppet master, and in the process places a massive target on his back. Now learning of Spartan's presence, rather than throwing him back in the freezer, well within his power, he seems to view the Demolition Man as an insurance policy against Simon.
Look, you finish your business, and I'll stuff him back in the freezer. Think of him as a guarantee.
In other words,
I disagree. I think that he didn't dump Spartan right back in the freezer because it wouldn't be, because by doing so, Cocteau would be viewed as unfavorably. Like the police pulled Spartan out from cryo to hunt down Phoenix, and he's doing that. If Cocteau shoved them back in the freezer, public opinion might sway on him. Like, wait a minute, this guy can supposedly go after. Like, yeah, he could have spun it, but I think maybe if they'd gone the route of, well, he left Spartan out there. Yeah, it's something to basically a little bit of okay, Phoenix doesn't have carte blanche to just run around doing whatever he wants. But at the same time, if he put Spartan back in the freezer, I think the public opinion on removing Spartan out of there when he's like the one weapon they have to actually hunt him down. If Cocteau had him return back to cryostasis, the people might have gone, wait a minute, our singular defense against this guy tearing ass through the city, and you just threw him back in cryostasis? And it might have had people start questioning his genius. So that might also be a reason why he didn't chuck him back in the freezer. And at the same, and like when he was talking with the police chief, he was like, oh no, it's quite all right. And he praised the police chief for being inventive and, made it seem like he is, again, a great leader with wisdom. It's like, oh, he sees the creativeness in this decision. And yeah. So he couldn't just toss Spartan back in without a good reason. That's why when Spartan shows up at Cocteau's office later, she tells Huxley, or no, not Huxley. Trying to remember the scene. There was a point where later in the movie, he actually does say, after Spartan has also torn ass through the entire city, that Cocteau tells, I forget who it was, tells them to return him to cryostasis, and that's when everything goes really off the fucking chain. So he needed a good excuse, i.e. John Spartan creating fucking havoc along with Simon Phoenix to substantiate, throw him back in the freezer.
Words, he's happy for someone to be working against his own agenda. What?
Why don't you just shove a leash up my ass?
Predictably, Simon has...
There's the lie. There's the lie.
...his own agenda. What?
Why don't you just shove a leash up my ass?
Predictably, Simon has been programmed with all the skills to break into Cocteau's avant-garde lair. He even plops himself down on the dude's throne, now channeling his inner Mad Max dictator. Could he make his intentions any more obvious? His horde of museum guns was probably already enough to seize San Angeles, but yeah, okay, let's give him some troops.
I'll need about 5 or 6 more special men.
Fine. Take care of it.
Delegating this...
Now, here is where we're seeing the failure. This is where Cocteau's arrogance got the better of him. Because remember, Cocteau has been in charge of a society of extreme pacifism for decades. Okay, I cannot remember exactly how long San Angeles in its current form had been about for, but I will say a couple decades. And Cocteau has been in charge of a society of extreme pacifism and obedience for a couple decades. And he was so arrogant about it that was it 30 years? Okay, so 30 years, so 3 decades. When he was confronted with a relic of the past, fuck! Sorry, my bad.
Edgar Friend.
Okay, let me get back to where we were. He was so, it went beyond his ken to understand how the human mind operated back in the mid-90s, because he's had 30 years of pacifism and obedience to his rule. And his extreme arrogance would not allow him to even conceive of the idea that someone could possibly be plotting against him utilizing violence. Exactly. His arrogance refused to acknowledge that this was even possible. And so when Simon Phoenix went, we bowl, she never saw it coming because he didn't think that such a thing was possible, because he's used to everybody falling upon their knees at his feet at just a word. And that's where we see the arrogance of this kind of leadership, quote unquote, fall apart. And that's why Simon was able to do what he did, because Cocteau was so overtly arrogant, he couldn't even conceive of a betrayal like this. Exactly, Revan. And that's the other factor, is that Phoenix was, he was brilliant in his criminality. And it probably wasn't overly hard for, once Phoenix was able to get his bloodlust under control, it was easy for him to figure out how to bypass the post-traumatic suggestion by just tossing a gun to one of his buddies and saying, shoot this motherfucker. Which he did.
Intentions any more obvious. His horde of museum guns was probably already enough to seize San Angeles, but yeah, okay, let's give him some troops.
I'll need about 5 or 6 more special men.
Fine. Take care of it.
delegating this task to Bob without for 1 second considering they might also need mental safeguards.
Yeah.
So you're going to be the only mad dog killer type, right?
Exactamundo. Trusting this admitted mad dog killer on his word.
I forgot he had this. I forget what the condition is called. I forgot that he had the eye condition here of one blue eye, one brown eye. God, it's been so long since I've seen it. I forgot he had that. Yeah, heterochromia. Yeah, I completely forgot about it.
That these grunts will be more civil. Maybe check their criminal records. I'd forgive the younger dupes of San Angeles for this level of naivety, but Cocteau has no excuse. This guy lived through challenging times. His obvious overconfidence causing him to underestimate his opponents. In John's case, Cocteau does the bare minimum in terms of covering his tracks. He fails to delete the museum footage of his interaction with Phoenix and leaves his secret cryo-programming files unsecured, easily overridden by a police officer's one-button authorization. I mean...
And again, this was, as the expression goes, sheer fucking hubris. Yes, Cocteau was there to build San Angeles up after the earthquake, but then he had 30 years of living the soft life where nobody questioned him, everybody did exactly what he said, and everybody was a complete pacifist. That's 30 years of societal programming that is not so easy to undo. And that's why he just assumed everything would fall into place for him, because up to that point, everything did fall into place for him. He said it and it got done, and he just assumed it, and in the movie, he just assumed that he said it should be done and it would be done. And he in his mind, in his conditioned mind of living in the society, it was inconceivable that anything could go awry, like Simon basically going, "Fuck you, you're gonna die." His brain could not conceive of this potentially happening.
Who is this information meant to be hidden from? Taco Bell employees?
In any covert battle, logic is a potent weapon. You might try it sometime.
However, at this point, it would probably be safer for Cocteau to just let Spartan take him into custody. Yep, we made it. It's the moment that cements Cocteau as one of the most astonishingly short-sighted villains of all time.
Lazy, which part am I correct about? I'm not, you're gonna have to be more specific about looking what up. Because I don't know what you mean. I'm curious which part of this whole thing that you're talking about.
Will you please kill him? It's pissing me off.
Oh wait, hang on. Oh god, so much. About Snipes having heterochromia? Oh, that? Huh. Oh, wait. I'll respond to another chat. Okay, misunderstood. My apologies. Okay, so I butted in on the conversation. I'm so sorry, chat. I am so sorry.
Cements Cocteau as one of the most astonishingly short-sighted villains of all time.
Will you please kill him? It's pissing me off.
Pat Goldberg kills him. Oh, wait. Yeah, it's cool. Oh, my brain is cooked. I am so fucking cooked. I don't know why the fuck I said Jesse Ventura earlier when I said Jesse Ventura kills him. You're right. It was Goldberg. God only knows. You know what? I'm probably just thinking big, bulky, bold wrestler, and for some reason, Jesse Ventura came to mind instead of Goldberg. I don't know why.
Will you please kill him? It's pissing me off.
Unceremoniously executed and thrown like the dry ideologue he is onto the dumpster fire of history. The way of life he created seemingly dying with him.
Why don't you get a little dirty? You will like clean. And somewhere in the middle, I don't know, you'll figure it out.
I guess.
And you know what's that? That right there what John Spartan just said. I will play it again.
Clean.
Dine with him.
Why don't you get a little dirty? You will like clean. And somewhere in the middle, I don't know, you'll figure it out.
Okay, chat. Who said it better? John Spartan or Falcon with his, "You need to do better, Senator"? I don't know. I kind of think John Spartan had it a lot more right than Falcon did with his little fucking speech about, "You need to do better." Oh, Fremen, shut up.
I guess that's the trouble with creating a society whose citizens have the resilience of lost little children.
What we do? How will we live?
Though considering Demolition Man 2 is apparently on the cards, his legacy may survive in some fashion. There's bound to be more than a few Cocteau stains on the kimono of San Angeles. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to find out how the 3 seashells work, and if you can be boggled, be well this video with a like.
Oh, Apex. Oh, Apex. I always much prefer to get dirtier. You know that. Yes, that was far more lengthy than I was much more lengthy than I was expecting it to be.